Welcome to this episode of Sunny Silver Linings. Sunny's guest today is IT by Design's senior recruiter, Matt Mills. Matt has over 15 years of experience recruiting technical and non-technical roles within the channel. In this episode, Sunny and Matt talk all things employee engagement and experience, and how you can't have one without the other. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Mr. Sunny Kayla. Over to you, Sunny.
Hi, Matt. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Sunny.
Yeah, so I really enjoy our teamwork, Matt. And why I enjoy teamwork is that I'm always very passionate about hiring and hiring top talent at ITBD. If you ask me, okay, Sunny, can you get up at 7 a.m. and have this interview? And I will be like, yes. And in this high growth mode and talent being at the center, it is always that top business requirement. But I'm just very passionate about it. And people that I work with, the teamwork that I do, and we have been doing this from almost 3 years now. But you have much more experience. And why I'm super excited about our conversation is that you have been helping MSPs from many, many years, and you have been doing this from over 15 years. And out of those 15 years, over a decade is in the MSP channel. So you know what good looks like in terms of finding top talent for MSP businesses. And we have the opportunity to share your experience, your wisdom, your valuable insights with our MSP partners. So my first question to you is, you probably see this more than I do. CompTIA just published a report in the month of July. And the unemployment rate in the tech sector is 1.5%. And it was 2.2% in the month of June. So every month is moving towards zero. And then when it comes to cybersecurity talent, Matt, it's almost zero. Not almost zero. They are saying it's probably minus, but they are having zero as a number. So when that type of need is out there and the shortage of tech talent and finding great people that are required to do teamwork, and it always takes a village for a business to grow, and that is very challenging for MSPs and probably the entire tech sector. So what are the challenges that you see nowadays in the industry when it comes to hiring talent?
Sure, yeah, and with as many open IT jobs as there are, we certainly don't have enough qualified technologists, and that's not counting the fact that everybody wants a superstar. Certainly, they're not all going to be superstars. In fact, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, they actually break down IT jobs and professional services jobs. So that deficit is greater than what the numbers are saying, because many of those professional services jobs are actually IT jobs. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that everybody knows. But what I would like to communicate to our partners is you've got to adapt. It's highly competitive. It's hard enough to find people that you're even interested in interviewing. So you've got to make that time count when you are interviewing these individuals. And I like to kind of think of it as it's really a courtship. So, in the days of old, candidate would come into an interview, interviewer asks all the questions, essentially says, hey, prove to me why I should hire you into my organization. Well, times have changed. And when you're taking that approach, you're not really developing that employee engagement, which can obviously down the road affect, your retention rates with these individuals. So the first step one is the interview, obviously. And I think with some minor changes, you can better yourself against the competition. And not lose out to candidates who are probably, as they're talking to 3, 4, 5 other companies about a similar position. So I can tell you a story back when I was in the trenches in my recruiting days. Yeah. We had one of our MSP customers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They had a level 2 engineer need. They were a pretty standard MSP, I don't know, 10, 12 employees, pretty standard job. So I recruited this individual that was looking to make a change. The MSP he was working for had lost a number of customers and they were kind of scaling down. He was a little bit worried about job stability. Seemed like a really good fit. Maybe a little light in the networking area, but otherwise a really good fit. So our customer, we advise them, as we do everybody, speed is going to get you to the finish line. So we need to move quickly. Yeah. And they followed our advice, but they took it one step further. And they really made the initial interview about the individual, about the candidate. So it wasn't an initial interview where they just threw a bunch of technical questions. They sat down, they spent some time talking about, the candidate's goals, what the company's goals were, what the people were like that worked there. And that really, struck a chord with the candidate. He was certainly very interested after that initial interview. It was probably 30 minutes or so, just a very casual conversation. Mm-hmm. At the same time, this candidate was also interviewing with another MSP. Their timeline wasn't moving quite as quickly, but I knew he was interviewing somewhere else. I knew that the other position was paying a little bit more. Commute was going to be it was a little bit closer to home for the candidate. So as a recruiter, I'm a little bit worried about that. I want that candidate to go for my customer. So the next day, my client invited that individual in. They did a technical screen with the team, got to meet the team members, showed them around the office. There was one technical assessment that they did on site. And, within a week, they were finished with their interview process and, they were ready to make an offer to the candidate. The firm that the other MSP that he was looking at, they reached out and said, we're interested, and sent him some assessments to complete before they scheduled an interview. So that really turned him off. And it was really that personal touch that our customer did that landed that candidate. It was a little bit less money, same position, but that went a long way.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing Matt say is that that employee experience starts from the interview process, that first impression, right? And where this one MSP during the first interview, they made this whole experience for that candidate and really getting to know that person, and then having their overall probably SLA around it to have the right response and kind of really drive it to completion. And on the other side, you have an example where just because of that slow response, candidate experience was impacted, and candidate is always going to choose where they're having good experience because that is their visibility to the culture, how people do work there, right? And so you made a great point, and especially when it comes to this type of market, and the candidate have probably many, many options to choose from. And that's where this high touch experience matters a lot more than normal circumstances. And so thank you for that advice. And I'm going to go to my next question. That one piece that always comes up is that, Sunny, I'm a small business. I have 10 people or 20 people or 50 people. So majority of our MSP friends, they are in that range. And Sunny, I have this big company around me, and it's very hard for me to either retain my talent or even kind of really win against this company. So what do you have any suggestion, recommendation to deal with that challenge?
Yeah, I do, and it's tough. Look, I mean, these big companies, especially if you're in big tech hubs. Maybe you were talking to someone in Seattle that has to compete with Microsoft and Amazon for technical talent. The brand recognition is there. Benefits are going to be tough to compete against. Salary may be tough to compete against, but what you should be focusing on is number one, where are you looking for people? It may not be the best match to look for someone that has only enterprise experience. So, you might want to look at small business yourself as far as a candidate pool. Number two, have frank conversations during the interview process. The example I used earlier, in that initial interview, you can talk about, hey, this is our small business. Here are the things that are great about our small business. We're nimble. We can make quick decisions. Here are some things that are challenging with the small business, and just having a frank conversation with them and feeling out what their responses are. Are they kind of looking sideways during the interview? Or are they saying things like, yeah, I want to have an outsized impact within an organization. If you go to Google, for example, you're a very small cog in this giant, gear that's going on. If they're going to launch a new product or integrate a new tool, if you're on the level 1 service desk, they're probably not going to ask for your input. But that's a powerful thing that you can say, that these are things we include all of our employees on these big decisions, because it's a decision for everybody. So I think having those frank conversations like that would be a good step.
Awesome. So that's a great point. In terms of not only Seattle, Matt, try going to San Francisco.
Sure.
Try
There
going
are plenty
to
of them.
Atlanta nowadays, or even New York here. It is tough to find good talent, especially in this year. And when it comes to overall pros and cons, that what you shared is you have to just probably look at your unique selling proposition as the employer brand, right? What do you have as a differentiator when it comes to your small business versus that Fortune 500 like Google, where you're just a number? And so what are you looking for? So if there's something that can be done in the beginning of that candidate journey to really see if they are interested in a big business or small business, I think that is a great, a lot of time saved for everyone. And it's really important to identify in the beginning stage that if that candidate is built or that person's factory installed, factory install is for big business or small business. It is important to find out in the beginning. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and what?
Quick. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add. I was going to add that you mentioned selling yourself, and maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was okay. Candidate's going to come in, and I expect the candidate to sell me on why I should hire them. Well, given the landscape right now, that first step needs to be you selling your organization to that individual, and sometimes people miss the boat on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Matt, what's going on in the market this year? It's very hard to acquire talent. And what that means is that you got to be focused on retaining your top talent as well. So what do you see in the market in terms of attrition related issues, and what MSPs can do to make sure that they are able to retain their top tech talent?
Sure. Yeah. And it's a challenge for everybody, certainly. But I think there are 4 key components to retention. So number one, you need to be providing meaningful work. Number 2, your employees need to like the people that they work with. Mm-hmm. Number 3, the employees need to trust their leaders, the people they work for. Yeah. And then number 4, obviously, compensation, it needs to be a fair compensation plan for the skill level. Mm-hmm. So there are some ways that there's some checks and balances and some ways that you can kind of monitor that and make sure that you're on track. So when it comes to meaningful work, I think it's really important to have a career development plan for each employee, something that you revisit every year, maybe at the yearly review. Part of that review is going to review the career development plan. Maybe their interests have changed over the course of the year, or something new has come out that they're interested in now. So making adjustments to the career development plan, talking about training that's going to get them to that next step in their career development plan. So that's number one that you can do. Number two is really one of those things we talked about the interview process earlier. Do they like their peers? Well, you don't know until they get started, but a good indicator is getting them in front of their peers and their coworkers during the interview process. Asking the peers and coworkers, hey, what did you think of John? Is this someone you could hang out with outside of work? So that's very important, and I think you during the interview you can get feedback from both sides. As far as leadership, I think the best way to build that trust factor with the employee is really it boils down to communication and transparency. We've mentioned a couple times you get these people involved in the strategy. Maybe you're not going to have them in a financial strategy session, but in terms of what services that you're looking to offer in the future, get their input. Then that's going to build trust with them that they value your opinion. And then, with compensation, you should be doing quarterly and yearly reviews. I know a lot of the smaller MSPs may not be doing that, but for those quarterly not quarterly, but for the yearly reviews, do a salary survey, do some research on your own, make sure that you are offering competitive compensation for the role that someone is doing. And I think if you stick to those four things and you do them consistently, I think anybody would see their retention rates, very high.
Yeah. So you talked about meaningful work being at the top, right? That what we do, that we enjoy that work. And the career development planning or that blueprint in terms of career roadmap is very critical. Where that person is, where they want to go, where business needs people. And then if that plan can be co-created, something that meets business need and that person's career aspirations, that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a really good point, because, I've seen some situations where it's, here, employee, here's your career development plan, get to work on it. It should be collaborative, and it should be something that's mutually beneficial for both the business, the leader, and the employee themselves. So that's a really important factor. Yep.
And that word co-created, Matt, as you know, you were part of my culture team.
Yes.
We kind of probably overused that word last year when we were co-creating our culture plan and co-creating everything. It was like involve people.
Yeah.
And let's co-create stuff, right? And that was such a really great experience, and we made a huge difference. And by the end of the year, with the two culture team efforts, with the quarterly exercise that we did, we ended up getting certified as a great places to work for. And so co-creation of things is really important. That buy-in is very important. That it's not just kind of push. It's it's a two-way street, and that is normally what will work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't, without some kind of collaboration, I don't know how you can get true buy-in from anybody. So
yeah. And I know some of our MSP friends, they use some great tools. We use 4 helpful list with everything that is like, what's working, not working, missing, confusing. And a lot of our MSP friends, they're used to that strata process. And they use EOS or they use scaling up. So all those business operating systems allow a business and business leaders to engage everyone and kind of really look at the issues, discuss those issues, and solve those issues together and create a strategy. And as you grow bigger, it becomes more challenging. Like now we have 600 people, and with 600 people, we have to have multiple four helpful lists in terms of n layer, n minus one, n minus two, n minus three, all those layers. But the key to anything that you're going to do as a team is going to be collaboration, and collaboration based on really understanding that passion, that ability, and from the career perspective, is that passion, is that ability, and it's really that unique ability is there. But overall, what really fuels you? Because what one thing I have noticed, Matt, recently this year is that sometimes our team members, they are really good at something that they're doing, but they normally don't enjoy it that much. It was just part of their job from the beginning. So they slowly developed and they are really good at it. But that's not something that fuels them. So now what we have started doing, at least people around me, I started creating these 3-4 lists. One is, what are you really good at? And you can do it really well, but it's not in your fuel list, or it's not in your passion list. And what are the things that you're very passionate about, but for some reason, circumstances in your previous roles did not give you the opportunity to discover that passion and go deeper into that. And maybe you are not good at it right now, but you're really passionate about it, because when passion is behind something, then you can get really good at that stuff very quickly. So that is like, you're not good at, but you're very passionate about. And then there's a list that is where you're passionate about that. That's your ability and your passion together. It is in your fuel list. So it fuels you every day and you're really good at it. When you get there, then work becomes so much, that there's so much joy in the work, and Monday mornings don't suck then. And
Yeah.
and vacation, you are kind of vocationing every day. It's like a vacation every day, because it fuels
Yeah.
stuff that you do. It just fuels you. You want to just get up and start doing that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And at times I think we've talked about, do you get it? Do you want it? And are you capable? And it really needs to be all those things, because you can be great at something, but if you just don't really want to do it, I still say performance is going to suffer a little bit if you're not passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah. So a couple of things there, that the employee experience will always start from that first experience or touch point. So having that employee journey mapped to make sure that employee have really good experience from entry to exit, and they get that red carpet from the beginning to the end. And that is really powerful advice. Thank you for that, Matt. And also how to really, because it's very hard to compete against 500 company for a small business from the brand perspective and other things, but you got to go look for people where they just don't want to work for Fortune 500 companies. Their factory install desire is to work for small business. They just don't do well in a bigger setup, because they are not good politicians.
That's true. That's true.
And the third one is for the retention. It's really having those timely sit downs or reviews. US will call it like 555 to whatever rhythm that you want to use, whatever the name is. But it is really about really being on the same page with meaningful work on the compensation side and that environment side. That is that person getting what they need, and the career plan, are they progressing, right? At the end of the day, happiness comes from when you are making progress in life, and our team members going to get that happiness if they feel that they are progressing, they are making a difference, and their work matters. And thank you so much for sharing your very, very valuable insights. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Sunny. It's great talking with you.